I'm Richard, and I went out to Hong Kong in '49 when I was 22.
I was just wondering how you got into sort of the civil service.
I volunteered to go to the Far East because my father had been in India as a cartographer. And, I was lucky to be picked to go there, actually. And I did a little while in the services, and then joined the Hong Kong government in Hong Kong.
So what did you do when you got over to Hong Kong? What job did you do?
Well, I was in the army.
You were in the army?
Originally, yeah. We were sent to Hong Kong in the first place to stop Mao, actually, coming across the border, but Mao didn't want to come across the border, thank God, because we couldn't possibly have stopped him. And I volunteered before national service, if you see what I mean, but so I joined the Hong Kong government. Because the whole idea was to train Chinese people. I worked in the housing authority where we had 3 million tenants.
So did you have to move this village?
Oh yes, yeah. What happened, this was when I was in the New Territories.
Right.
And two things happened in that time. One of which was the moving of the village, and it took us 4 years to do it. The reason why we had to move the village was that in the government plan, the whole of this area was to be turned into housing and factories. And on the edge of it, the sea edge of it, was going to be the container port for Hong Kong, because of course the container port was vital to Hong Kong's future. And so my particular task was to clear this whole valley, really, which included this 200-year-old communist village, who were Hakka people. They weren't Cantonese people. They'd already sold their land to developers, and there were tenant farmers on the land. But the core of the village was village houses and an ancestral temple. And so this had to be moved onto a new site. And they had to more or less do it themselves. But I was sort of helping them along the way. So the consulting engineers were given a piece of land on which to resite the village. And each villager was to be given a minimum of 2 houses so that they could live in one and have income from shops in the other. And there was to be a school in the village, and the ancestral temple was to be moved. And our meetings used to go on long into the night because most of the negotiators were women, actually. They were the toughest negotiators. And it was all done in the Hakka language, actually.
So was there any sort of opposition from the people in the village? How did they feel about having to move?
They didn't mind the thought of moving. It was the terms on which they moved that mattered.
What were the terms?
Well, the terms were that they wanted to get the maximum out of us, if you see what I mean.
Right.
And I had constraints on what I was allowed to give, so that's where the rub came. They were judged to have made money out of the development of their land and things like that, so they weren't entitled to the full whack, if you see what I mean. So that's why it was more difficult and took such a long time. And they employed a geomancer to decide, a feng shui expert. Do you know feng shui?
No.
Wind and water. It's a sort of, it governs everything, really.
Right.
He had to decide on the site of the Chitong in the new village, and also the dates on which things happened. So there had to be a breaking of the ground in the new village, and the building of the Triton was the first thing, and then the village houses followed afterwards. And all these things happened at ceremonies very early in the morning, if you see what I mean, about 5 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday evening. So they had to design and build their own houses and pay for it themselves. So it was rather more complicated.
So were there any problems that you encountered sort of in the 4-year process?
Well, there were, because the consulting engineer wanted to produce a sort of curved platform, but they didn't want that at all. They just wanted straight things. So you had to, give way on things like that.
Yeah.
The final move of the village, the ancestral tablets had to be moved in a procession with umbrellas over the top of them to protect them, in traditional style. Lai ngô kê tham ngô bê ngô tê kê bùi đó, tụi này con chúc mừng cái mừng